If you're managing hundreds of products in your Google Ads or even hundreds of products on your e-commerce store in general, you're not even spending on Google Ads, what I'm about to share pretty much changed everything for our clients. Now, in this video, I'm going to explain the issue that you'd be facing. It's a pretty simple fix, but most people don't really realize that they're even making this mistake in the first place because, they're just simply not looking where they need to look in order to analyze the data correctly. Now, this is pretty basic. It'll be very easy to understand. It's actually something you could probably check inside your account after this video. And it'll be like one of those aha moments of like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Now, for context, I run Google Ads for multiple seven-figure brands. And in the last 5 months alone, we've taken 2 brands from like low to mid 6 figures to 7 figures per month. And both of those stores are high-SKU stores, so large product catalog. So let's break it down. Reason why high-SKU count stores struggle to scale with Google Ads, right? So this is a high-SKU count store. Now, there's many contexts in which someone would have high SKU counts. It could be either a fashion store, it could be a store that sells a number of accessories, it could be a reseller store. For example, any reseller that sells like LG monitors, for example, or sells Nike shoes, they probably sell a bunch of other brands. They'd be considered a reseller and they probably have a heap of SKUs. So this fashion store has 4 product categories, right? I've seen people have up to product categories. I've seen people have up to 50,000 SKUs, right? This particular store has t-shirts, hoodies, tracksuit pants, and trousers. And each of them have SKUs each. Each of these blue dots is supposed to represent a SKU. This is how many SKUs each of those product categories have underneath them. Now, the biggest problem that e-commerce retailers face when they have high SKU counts is it's very hard to manage a significant amount of products. It's very hard to ensure that you're putting the most amount of budget behind your winning products because ultimately, in every high SKU count store, the Pareto principle applies. If you're not sure what the Pareto principle is, essentially what that is 20% of your products will be responsible for 80% of your revenue. And that has been the case in, I would say, almost 100% of stores that I've worked with that have high SKU counts. 80% of the products that you test are just not going to work. And you need to ensure that you're putting the most amount of budget behind the products that are going to work for you and really not spend on the products that are not working for you or below your target. Now, when I go inside Google Ad accounts with high SKU count stores, 100% of the time, I will see this. So this is a graph, right? So you got revenue on the left-hand side here, you got spend down the bottom. Products will be grouped into one of these 4 categories. So they'll have high spend, high revenue products, and they're called your top performers. You put a lot of spend behind them and they've generated a lot of revenue for you. They're well above their ROAS targets or they're on par with what your ROAS targets are. They're your top performing products. Then you'll have high spend, low revenue products. So they would be your poor performing products because you put a lot of spend behind them, you've tested them, but they're not actually generating much revenue for you. They would be your poor performing products. Then you have low spend, high revenue products. So I call these underexposed products. So essentially, they've generated a bit of revenue, but they haven't had a lot of spend there. And they probably deserve a little bit more spend to see if they'll actually consistently stay at that revenue mark or that return on ad spend or whatever it's achieving at more spend. So these products here probably deserve more spend, right? Just to test whether they actually maintain that revenue. And then you have products that are low spend, low revenue. So it's not really clear whether they're winning products. They haven't generated a lot of revenue. They haven't had a lot of spend behind them as well. And all of your products will be grouped into one of these 4 categories here. When we go inside accounts, this is what we see. Whether someone's got 1, 2, 3, 4 campaigns, it doesn't really matter. Let's just call it catch-all. And I'll briefly explain that in a moment. But essentially, they'll have their top performing products grouped into the same campaign with poor performing products, with low spend, low revenue products, with low spend, high revenue products. Essentially, their top performers are in the same campaign as products that are not top performing. And that's the crux of the issue. And the reason this is an issue, right? So we call this catch-alls when the products are kind of in a catch-all and sort of grouped all together. And it's bad. And the reason it's bad is because every time you add more budget to those campaigns, it's not only adding budget to these top performers here, which you would obviously drive more revenue for you, but it's adding the equal amount of budget, in all likelihood, towards your poor performing products that are never going to generate the revenue mark that you would desire. So you're adding more budget to the top performing products and the poor performing products. And of course, even the mid performing products and low performing products. And so that's a problem because with high SKU count stores, you want to segment out your top performing products and you just want to push them as far as you possibly can. You want to vertically scale those budgets as far as you possibly can until it breaks. Because as I said, the Pareto principle applies. 80% of your revenue come from 20% of your products, which means it's about putting as much spend as possible behind that top 20%. This is an unsegmented, consolidated approach. Everything's kind of consolidated together. As I said, you've got your top performers grouped in with your poor performers, right? That's the crux of what I'm trying to say. This is what you need to do. And you can do this inside your account. You can look inside your Google Ad account and look at the product spend. So you can actually look at how much is being spent on each product and how much revenue is being driven for each product. And you'll be able to group your products into these 4 buckets. So you'll have high spend, high revenue, top performing products. You'll have low spend, high revenue products. You have low spend, low revenue products. And then you have high spend, high revenue products that are poor performing. And it's your job to exclude those products. If you spend a lot of money on something and it's not generated the desired revenue for you or the desired return on ad spend, it's time to exclude those products, okay? Because ultimately, you need to test things that are going to generate more revenue for you and find more top performers. These are not your top performers. And I can't tell you how many times I've been inside an ad account where I've seen products that are failing products that are getting a ton of spend. And those products have low contribution margin. Those products have low margin overall, and they're never going to reach the ROAS target because they're a bad product and they just don't sell well, right? And so this doesn't mean that you just need to go and group all your products like this, overnight, and have 35 campaigns. Although I have some clients that have up to 55 campaigns, and I have no problem with having that at all. I think in a hyper segmentation with 55 campaigns, I have no problem with that at all. That can work when you're at ultimate scale. Those guys are spending 100K a month. But when you're starting, you essentially just want to put the most amount of budget possible behind your top performers. So essentially what you need to do is you need to ensure that 70% of your budget goes behind the top performing products. And then you can put another allocation of budget to your low spend, high revenue products that would be underexposed. So these are the products that have spent a little but generated well above goal. They probably deserve a bit more spend. 10% of your budget going towards the low spend, low revenue ones. So these ones have only had low spend, low revenue. It's not really clear what sort of goals there are, but we should still advertise them to see if we can graduate any of them to other campaigns, because that's ultimately what we want to achieve here. We want to have this work as a graduation system, and that's what works really well with this kind of structure, is that you have products from here eventually become top performers, and then you have some of the top performers over time might even become bad performers, right? But essentially you want to be able to look at your campaigns and ensure that you're putting the most amount of budget behind your top performers, and you're putting less budget behind your low spend, high revenue products, or even your poor performing products, so on and so forth. You get the picture, right? Accounts that have high SKU counts, if they simply just did this, they wouldn't need to hire an agency at all. They could simply just apply exactly what I'm speaking of here and put more budget behind the high spend, high revenue products and get exponentially better results. Because when you've got it grouped up this way, right? When you add more budget to this, let's say this is broken up into several campaigns, but when you're adding more budget to your top performers, you're going to generate more predictable revenue because you know that those products are top performers and they are going to consistently generate revenue for you. As opposed to having a setup where you're adding more budget to this campaign here and you're also adding it to the poor performing products as well as the top performing products. And so, as I said, this acts as a graduation system, so you'll find more products that become top performers over time. You're able to sort of see the picture a little bit better, and you're able to go, okay, we put a bit more spend behind these products this month. They generate a little bit more revenue. Maybe they can become one of our top performers. Let's put more budget behind them. And you can kind of have that picture where you're actually understanding where your products sit. And of course, this doesn't mean that you need to have 35 campaigns overnight where you're segmenting out by sales volume. Please don't do that. This is more of a holistic point of view where you just need to have a look at what you're spending on and ensure that you're spending on the top performing products, because you get far better results, far more predictable results from doing that. And then over time, what you essentially want to do at ultimate scale is you want to get the top performers, because you'll have some of these products that are just far exceeding and far outweighing any other products that you have. You want to get those top performers, and you can segment them into their own budget as well, into their own campaigns, and scale them as far as you possibly can until they break. Now that's when you get to high spend levels, and obviously there's a lot of context that goes behind that. This video is not for the purpose of covering that context. This video is just to have you understand that you can go inside your Google Ads account, look at your product spend, and make sure that you're not wasting your money. Because 100% of the time that I go inside these accounts, I see these issues. You can fix them right away. Have a more segmented approach, because proper segmentation is needed to give yourself the opportunity to actually scale. Because once we've got this sorted, we can scale these as hard as we possibly can until it reaches a point of law of diminishing returns. So I hope you enjoyed the video. There'll be more valuable videos like this coming on my channel. If you want to understand proper campaign segmentation when it comes to shopping or performance max campaigns, if you're an e-commerce brand, you can check out some of my courses that I have on my channel. But essentially, this is what you need to understand in order to scale a high SKU count store. So hope you enjoyed the video, and there'll be more like this. I will drop the link to our shopping and performance max guide below. You guys can check that out so you can actually see how you would segment your campaigns in order to be the most successful. We'll see you in the next one.